gratitude recognition honors a professional for a lifetime achievement. Dr. Elinor Robin is the recipient of the Gratitude Recognition Award. For the past 25 years, Dr. Robin, mediator and mediation trainer, has been on a mission to change the ways we understand and response to conflict at home and at work. She has mediated thousands of divorces, workplace disputes, and family conflicts in the courts and the private sector. 8 years ago, Elinor and David, her husband, and her business partner started a one-stop divorce mediation and document preparation business, which they call A Friendly Divorce. That takes couples through the divorce process without much of the angst and grief that a lawyer-driven divorce often brings. Additionally, they were able to create a small statewide network of mediators who also do what they do. As a primary mediation trainer with Mediation Training Group, Elinor teaches a variety of mediation programs and has trained over 13,000 professionals nationally and internationally. Over the course of the next decade, Elinor would like to build out her Friendly Divorce Network. Additionally, she would like to focus on aging, on how we can age in support of communities, legacy, and how baby boomers and others can create legacies that will honor them and their memories. She is currently working on 2 books, the Divorce Guidebook, Tools, Support, Information, and Advice for Successfully Navigating the Treacherous Terrain Between Married and Divorced, and a book titled 10-Minute Mediation, which will allow everyone to learn the mediator's basic magic that moves people out of conflict into resolution. Over the years, Dr. Elinor Robin has been an advocate of support for local therapists, treatment centers, and other professionals. She organizes monthly meetings for local mental health professionals, to which she has collaborated with directors of many Florida addiction and mental health treatment centers. Elinor credentials include certification from the Florida Supreme Court as a mediator and primary mediation trainer, licensure as both a mental health counselor and a marriage and family therapist in Florida, and certification as a national certified counselor and a board certified coach. She is an appointed member of the Florida Supreme Court's Mediator Qualifications Board, a past president of the Association of South Florida Mediators, and an advanced practitioner member with the Association for Conflict Resolution. Her quotes and articles have appeared in various publications and media. Elinor blogs for the Huffington Post, and her new book, The Professional Woman's Guide to Conflict Management, can be purchased at Amazon and Package Publishing. Here's what a few who know Elinor have to say.
Elinor goes above and beyond the call of duty. Her passion for her work is evident in her compassion for her clients. Elinor's caring for others is always front and center of what she does. From the saying that actions speak louder than words, we always hear a loving message from Elinor. Somebody else says Elinor is a rare gem, pure radiance. She is truly dedicated to the well-being of others and lives with love and light in her heart. Another person who knows Elinor states that Elinor has created a way to use her skills and apply them to the art of mediation. She's aware of where her skills are best suited, and though it's not necessarily as a therapist, it is in her work in mediating between divorcing couples. She is always willing to try new things and is excellent at connecting people together. She never hesitates to introduce and connect those inside and outside of the field, which has been essential to my own professional growth. It is an asset to work with her and to know her. And one last person states that Elinor is a natural connector. She speaks and listens to all different types of people, knowing the value in connecting as professionals with the common goal of helping others. Despite her many accomplishments and extensive training, she remains humble and curious about the world and its various twists and turns. From the moment I met her, I knew she was a person I could trust and was instantly drawn to her. I am proud today to call her a colleague, but more importantly, my friend. At this time, I present the Gratitude Recognition Award Lifetime Achievement to Dr. Elinor Robin.
You look so beautiful. I just want to kind of take it in for a minute. And I'm somewhat verklempt. But it's nice to see happy faces here. And as I was sitting there, I was thinking about my award being for gratitude. And my sister's here, and my father used to say to us, "You want a reason to cry? I'll give you a reason to cry." And I was thinking, you want a reason to be grateful? I'll give you a reason to be grateful. If I sang Amazing Grace. You know who I sound like? Edith Bunker. So you all have a reason to be grateful today. You have nothing else, even though I know that just by virtue that you're sitting in this room, you all have a lot to be grateful for. And you know, Oprah says you make the gratitude list. So anyway, I have a tremendous amount to be grateful for. I don't know who nominated me for this award, but whoever it was, I thank them. And I certainly thank Elisa and Mila for making this whole event happen. It's a tremendous amount of work, and I appreciate it. And I certainly want to thank all of you. There are some in the room who have strong, long connections to, and some who I'm just acquaintances with, but I really appreciate all of you being here. What I want to do is sort of tell you a little bit about my story and then give you 7 takeaways that I have learned because I am older than many of you, not all of you, but I am older than many of you, and so during this walk on earth, I have learned some things. Anyway. So I grew up in New York City, and I'm going to try to be really brief on my story part, because I know nobody wants to hear that stuff. I grew up in New York City in the tumultuous 60s, and my teenage years reflected the chaos. I was a chronic truant, and I'm proud to admit that today. Today I can admit that. I was a chronic truant, and I was an all-around troublemaker who every teacher had labeled me as she doesn't live up to her potential. Did anybody else in here ever get that? You're living up to your potential today. For sure. And if my mother was here, she would tell you that it was a miracle that I graduated from high school, that nobody believed it. But I did. And as soon as possible, after high school graduation, I hit the road because I knew that New York was not where I really belonged. And by the time I was 19, I was married. I was 22 and I had 2 children. Unfortunately, neither one of them is here today. I ended up with 2 children who live in 2 different foreign countries. But that's, you know, the way it plays. Anyway, through a series of twists and turns, I ended up in Boca Raton, and I ran a shoe repair shop with my first husband. So I know Stanley, he's taken my class, and I didn't know that he had delivered beer. He had never told me that, but I thought I had repaired shoes. He delivered beer. So you see, we never kind of know where life is going to take us. It's always kind of a mystery, right, what's ahead. Anyway, I was running this shoe repair shop, and then one day in 1986, I was reading Gail Sheehy's book, Pathfinders, and suddenly I had an epiphany. I knew I was not doing and being who and what I was supposed to be. And I knew I had to go back to school. And I went over to what was then called Palm Beach Junior College and signed myself up. And then I went on a 20-year academic journey. And when I went back to school, I thought I wanted to be a lawyer. And so I started taking sort of lawyerish kind of classes. And when I was in one of my classes, someone mentioned to me the idea of mediation. And it was just such a fantastic idea. It just made so much logical sense to me that I said, I've got to do that. And I went over to the Palm Beach County Courthouse. At the time, the woman who ran the program there was named Leslie Ratliff. She is now in North Carolina. And for whatever reason, Leslie decided that I could partake in one of the initial mediation training programs that would be the state was giving. And this was really generosity on her part, because all the other people who were going to take this program were volunteers. I say it was 28 people. It was me and 27 old white guys. And the reality is the old white guys who were all retired could afford to be volunteers in the courthouse. By that time, I couldn't afford it. I was a single parent and a college student. But her generosity really changed my life. And I know that each of you in this room occasionally has the opportunity to be generous and change someone else's life. And I thank you for that. Anyway, then I graduated from FAU and I went to work for the Florida Department of Corrections. And I shouldn't be teary about that one. I was a probation officer, and you can guess that I did not have the right mindset for that job. And even today, it is 25 years later, and I still ache for many of the addicts who crossed my path in probation. And certainly one of the things that bothered me most was that made me most grateful was I knew that just for a few twists and turns, I was on the right side of the desk. I could have easily have ended up on the wrong side of the desk. But, you know, sometimes you just roll the right dice. Even today, I get apoplectic when I think about, this is one of my soapboxes, I will get off the soapbox really fast, how corporate greed has created thousands of addicts who end up in prison each year. And I say corporate greed, there's so many reasons, but if you want to know, just find out what they do in prison with the phones and the Christmas gift boxes, and you'll see why we as a society are so invested in putting these people in prison, even though, as we all know, they have behavioral and mental health issues. And I'll leave that alone. So it was just about this time I was working for probation that I met the man, now I'll cry again, the man who was surely the love of my life, my husband, David. He's grown up too soon. And he was not one of my probationers. But he was a fellow seeker. He was a fellow seeker, and he encouraged me to be true to myself and to reach for the stars. And I was clear that what I wanted to do was mediate divorces. I knew that. And in that time, I needed to either go back to school and be a lawyer or get a master's degree so that I could mediate divorces, because I was mediating in small claims court already. And I figured law school was just going to be too stressful and abusive, and I was such a self-help junkie that it made perfect sense to go back to school and get a degree in counseling. And I wrote here that as a self-help junkie, I figured I could incorporate my own healing into my schoolwork. And I think there's a really interesting dichotomy here for us to look at. What's the difference between incorporating my own healing into my schoolwork and my work, or incorporating my work into my healing? That's the one we don't want to do, right? We want to incorporate our healing into our work, not the other way around. I think it's an important distinction. Anyway, once I graduated and I had a master's degree, I went to work in the Palm Beach County courts in a pilot program for dependency mediators, for dependency mediation. And for those of you who are fortunate enough not to know, a dependency case is a case where the parent is accused of abuse, abandon, or neglect of a child. And what we would do is mediate out with the Department of Children and Families some kind of parenting plan to take the parents to the next step. And I loved my work as a dependency mediator, and I was mediating divorces there too in the courthouse, but I actually could not stand the man who ran the program, and I can say that because he's no longer alive. I probably wouldn't say it if he was still there, and wouldn't get back to him, but I can say it because he's not here. So then, I was lucky enough though, that I had been mediating small claims cases in Broward, and Broward, they called me up and said they had a new program, a teen court program. Is anybody in here familiar with teen court? Very few. It's really a good program. And Broward's teen court, which of course I'm biased, I set it up, is I believe one of the best teen courts in the country. The program is still running, and if you know juveniles who either want to volunteer to be part of the volunteer staff, they use kids to help try other kids. So it's a first-time offender diversion program. I can't say enough, it's really a wonderful program for children who have first-time arrests. Anyway, the Broward courts had gotten funding, and I was hired on as the director, and shortly after I got the job, I realized I should go back to school yet again. And so I decided to go back to school and get a PhD, and I did. And while I was in school, my boss and I at the time, my colleague Susan Dubois, who unfortunately is not here today because she's busy training mediators, the two of us started a mediation training business, which eventually just got to be too much to have a job and a training, and we both took early retirement and left. Today, as Mila said, we have trained over 13,000 mediators, and eventually I also did suck David into my mediation world, and as Mila said, we did start our own practice where we mediate divorces for people who want to go through the process without lawyers. And so why am I telling you all this? Now I'm at the good part. All right, so I've come up with 7 things, sort of my 7 takeaways from my little story, and these are the 7 points I'd like you to carry forward as you leave here today. The first one is that no one cares about anything except what's in it for them. And my best example of this is, if you will remember, at the 2008 election, the Obama campaign had a motto of change, right? This was the most brilliant marketing possible. Change, one word. Does that mean that's my time? Oh. Change, one word, easy to understand, right? And we can all project whatever we want on it. What does change mean to me? What am I going to get? What are you going to get? What are you going to get? We're all going to get something different. But we could believe whatever we wanted, change. So I knew what was in it for me. John McCain, usually people don't remember what his message was, but his message was, I am a maverick. Well, what does that say? That says, I'm going to give you change. I'm a maverick. I'm going to move. I'm going to shake things up and give you change. But you know what? We're all too busy to connect the dots. We can't, our brains, we're like busy looking at our phones. We can't go from I am a maverick to what you are going to get. So as you go forward, when you're talking to whoever you're talking to, try to keep your message as focused as possible on what's in it for them, because nobody really cares what's in it for me. They want to know what's in it for them. Okay. My second one is that your greatest strength is your greatest weakness. And I think that this is true for all of us. The challenge is figuring out how to take that trait and use the strong part of it, the good part of it, versus the shadow side, the flip side of the coin. An example is some people have said is that I am wise and intuitive. That's really my greatest strength. But my greatest weakness is I can be a big know-it-all. They're the same. And so we really have to be careful on how we use our talents, our gifts, our traits, our strengths. Okay, number 3. It's not what you know or who you know, but who knows you. And so my challenge to you would be to go out and meet everybody you can. Certainly you should know everybody who's sitting at your table, and unfortunately I know we really sit here in groups of treatment programs sit together, but know everybody at the other table. Try to meet everybody you can. Try to meet one person who you don't know here today, because that's going to be what gets us through. It's certainly going to be what gets us through the crisis, when somebody else knows you. I was in Vancouver visiting my daughter recently, and you know, Vancouver is a film hub. They make a lot of movies there. And I met an actor in the elevator of her building, because a lot of actors live in Vancouver, and I can't remember his name now. And I said to him, oh my God, I can only imagine what it's like. But he was on Treme. If you watched Treme, he was in Treme, the actor. Anyway, I said to him, I can only imagine what it's like to go through life with people knowing you, and you have no clue who the hell they are. And he laughed, but think about it, right? If people feel they know you, they're going to be much more likely to connect. So remember, it's not what you know or who you know, but who knows you. The next one, to my baby boomer friends, I believe that we need to keep evolving and learning, because basically when we stop, we're dead. Number 5, I've only got 7, so I'm on number 5. Number 5 is, and this is a really important one as a mediator, under every human conflict, someone feels dismissed, discounted, disenfranchised, or disrespected. I don't care if it's the fight you had with your mother-in-law, if it's 2 neighbors, if it's a workplace dispute that turns into a shoot 'em up, if it's 2 countries at war, if it's 2 ethnic factions, it's always the same thing. Someone feels dismissed, discounted, disrespected, or disenfranchised. When it's you who's angry with conflict, try to figure out what happened to give you that sense. Try to tap into the sense, where did it come from? And if somebody else is angry at you, try to figure out what you might have done so that they have this perception, even though it likely is not true. Number 6 is that life is not the deli counter at Publix. There's a continuum. At one end, some people do live like that. They live like life is the deli counter at Publix. They take a number and they stand there and wait to be called. Other people, the real risk takers, the trailblazers, they're out there with the machete, right? Unfortunately, those pioneers often get shot in the back. So this is the kind of the continuum. Where I try to be is about over here. I'm not that much of a risk taker, it feels scary to me. But over here is good, and this is what I call Pathfinder. And what does the Pathfinder do? The Pathfinder goes and looks for a path that might be covered over already. And there's some overbrush or whatever it's called. But the Pathfinder is able to easily clear the path and, go on the trail. That's where I think most of us want to be. We can't all be there all the time, but sometimes we want to be there. And my last one is partnership. I wrote my doctoral dissertation on the relationship of non-familial business partners. I have been in business with both of my husbands in my lifetime. I do have this business partner who unfortunately is not here. We have been in business for 15 years. I am a huge believer in partnership. My life is the example that 1 + 1 equals at least 3, at least. Venture capitalists won't give money typically to a new venture unless there's partners involved, because partners bring a wide variety of perspectives, skills, and traits. We are a community, we are a partnership, and as we leave here today, I ask you just to hold that. Remember that somebody's out there. No matter what you have to do, try to find a partner to do it with, and first of all, it's more fun, but you can also accomplish so much more. Look at your partners in this room. Look at the wealth of knowledge that we have in this room. And as you go forward, hold those partners dear. Don't hesitate to call on them. The worst somebody can say to you is, sorry, no. And rejection only gets you ready for the next yes. And that's about all I have to say.